All right, number 30. Now, I will admit that 30 is probably one of the strangest ones in this entire review, and I'll also tell you that this is one that me and some of the other teachers at ECU disagree on. Some teachers will say that this one is a true statement, others will say it's a false statement, but either way, I think I'm right. I actually went through several different of my old class notes from Texas Tech to check out to make sure that I was right on this one. And as far as I can tell, then I'm presenting it to you in the best way that I know how. Now, that being said, some of the other teachers will disagree with me. So just letting you know that this one's kind of up for some debate with some of the teachers here at Eastview. Anyway, determine whether the statements prove a logical reasoning. Basically, if I give you the first two statements, can I assume that the third one is true? So it says that if a creature lives underwater, it is a fish. Now, there is an implied then here. Also, I understand that this is a nonsensical statement. We know that there are creatures that live underwater that are not fishes, but let's just go ahead and use this as it stands. Anything that lives underwater is a fish. We also know that Sam is a fish. So the question is, can we then assume that Sam lives underwater? Well, here's the thing. This statement as it stands implies that every single creature living underwater is a fish. It does not imply that every single fish in existence lives underwater. So if Sam is a fish, we don't know whether or not he lives underwater or not. We can't say for sure because the way this statement is written, it almost implies as if there's a possibility of a fish living somewhere else other than underwater. Now, I know that gets kind of weird. Let's look at another example that kind of is a simpler version of this. If I live in Texas, then I live in the United States of America. Also, let's say that I live in Texas. If I say this, if I live in Texas and I live in the USA and I live in Texas, then yes, I must live in the USA. But notice what I did there. Well, by the way, the reason that works is because we essentially have, I know the US isn't an oval, but we'll go with it. Let's say this is the USA and this down here is Texas. Well, if I live in Texas, I'm inside of here, which means I must also be inside of the USA. That one is a true statement as it is written. However, that's not what this statement says. Notice how here I have the hypothesis of this one. Here I live in Texas is the hypothesis, and so here's the hypothesis. This is the hypothesis. Over here, I have the hypothesis and the conclusion, and then I repeat the conclusion. So let's reevaluate that. Instead of I live in Texas, let's say I live in the USA. Well, if I live in Texas and I live in the USA, I live in the USA, therefore I live in Texas. Well, that's not true because somebody could live right here in Florida or Virginia. I guess that would probably be more like Kentucky if I put it right there. But the point is that whenever I put in the conclusion, then that doesn't work. So this overall, as it sits, is a false statement because I'm assuming the conclusion and not the hypothesis. If you're interested in looking on any sort of reasoning on that, there's actually a technical word for what this is called. It's called modus ponens, and if you're really interested, do a Google search on modus ponens, and you can get all sorts of explanations of how that whole thing works. But basically, that's one of the laws of logical reasoning that people have come up with over the centuries and millennia to govern logical situations like this. So as it stands, this guy is false.